Okay, morning everyone. Time for another Blood Bowl vlog. Log. Okay, so today's a good example of the kind of topic that I think is really going to be useful for new players. There's one or two concepts that we're going to cover that really do seem like second nature to a lot of us, or basic, that you sort of gain through intuition and things like that. But sometimes it's not all that straightforward. If you're not familiar with the game, then really there are things that you don't really consider from the start. And today we're going to be covering the kind of concept of caging up, defending the ball when you're in possession, and getting your drive up the pitch. So I want to draw on another example that I've experienced, which was, I remember playing a game against a guy who was, it may have even been his first tournament. I was playing, I believe, my SLAN team, and for those of you who've not encountered the SLAN because they're not in the rule book anymore, they're basically like a team of frogmen. So they can leap all over the pitch. They've got extra long legs, the mutation from the start on a lot of them. So the linemen leap on 3+s anywhere. The catchers are agility 4, so they leap on 2s anywhere. And it's an entirely different team to try and defend against, in fairness. But he still made this sort of really basic error. He was in possession of the ball, and what he attempted to defend his ball carrier with was basically just two players, one positioned either side of him. I think he was sort of behind a line of guys, but I don't think I even had to leap to get to him. Now that's a really straightforward thing for me to turn the ball over from. I think I had a wrestle player, which you typically take with the SLAN, and so I tied up his two quote-unquote defending players, and I just easily blitzed his ball carrier and turned the possession over. So what I want to sort of get to grips with for you guys is just the basic concept of making sure that the ball is at least safe. And what I want you to do is take a regular D6, if you've got one nearby, and just have a look at the number 5, the 5 dots on that side of the dice. That shape you're looking at is basically the shape we want to create with a full cage. Okay, so you've got your ball carrier, that's the center dot on the number 5, and you've got 4 players that constitute the pillars of that cage, positioned on the corners. That basically means that anyone who wants to blitz that ball carrier, first of all, has to make a very difficult dodge roll, and secondly, as things stand, unless they tie up the guys defending, of course, they're rolling a half dice block. A half dice block is basically how many of us refer to a 2 dice uphill or defender's choice block. Okay, so if you were to blitz my ball carrier and I say it's a half dice block, then I get to choose. So if you roll a power and a skull, then obviously I'm going to select the skull and you go down. So that's the full cage. That's the kind of thing that you're trying to create. Now, obviously, to create a full cage, you're basically committing players, and what you want to make sure of is that, first of all, that it's necessary. Obviously, if you're deep in your half and you're against a slow team, such as Khemri or Dwarfs or something like that, then there's no immediate threat on the ball. So just be wary of your opponent's movement. If you're playing Skaven and he's got gutter runners or wood elves, and his catchers and his war dancers can be on you easily if you fail a pickup or something like that, then yes, you have to kind of mitigate from the start. You need to have defensive players ready to put tackle zones on the ball, and create that sort of defensive cage if you manage to pick up the ball. Okay, so be aware of your opponent's movement and what positionals he's got on the pitch that can get to you. If he doesn't, or if you're yourself a slow-moving team, such as the Dwarfs, then you can happily sort of cage up and just really trundle towards his half. You've got 8 turns. Remember, you're not in a particular rush to score in every game. Obviously, there's different things that can happen in Blood Bowl. You can ping touchdowns back and forth in some games. Or I remember one game I had at the NAF Championships a couple of years ago. I was playing my Skaven team, and I was against the guy, and I forget who. I do apologise. I think it might have been Mr. Hannah, but I'm not sure. Who was going for the most casualty award, and he had his ogres, so he was just bashing the daylights out of my Skaven, and I was pinging touchdowns, and I actually ended up winning the game 8-0. He did go on to win the most casualties award, so I guess it worked out for him. But yeah, so different things can happen in a game. Obviously, if you get the chance to turn over, then nick the ball and put it in. But if you sort of consider the structure of the Blood Bowl match, so you've got your half, your drive, and your opponent's drive. Obviously, you want to score in your drive, and you want to stop your opponent scoring in their drive. But what you really don't want to happen is for your opponent to score in your drive. That feeling of getting turned over it's always disappointing. Even now, playing for over 10 years, when you get turned over, you still kind of feel like, oh God, let myself down. Have to go home and face the wife. Even the dog's looking up at you, disappointed eyes. She knows. She knows you've let the whole team down, the whole family down. You're a disgrace because you got turned over. So you don't want that kind of sensation. You want to defend well, you want to keep the ball, and you want to try and turn your opponent over. So the full cage is one example of a tool that you can do to basically make it as mathematically improbable as possible each turn for your opponent to take the ball away from you. And that sounds like a simple premise, but considering that I've conceded about 1 jillion touchdowns in my time, obviously it's easier said than done. It's just something that I wanted to kind of impart as to having your tool in your toolkit as a Blood Bowl player to know about if you don't already. As I said, it commits players, so basically sometimes I'm okay with my opponent forming a cage because I think, well, that's 5 players that I don't have to sort of immediately worry about, especially if it's a slow-moving team or something like that. So you've got to pick and choose your moments, I suppose. And again, with these videos and these logs and what I'm trying to get across to you, I made the disclaimer at the start, I'm not the best Blood Bowl player in the world, and I can't exactly impart complete and total control over tactics here and there. There's things that you're just going to have to test and play and learn about through, unfortunately, probably rolling skulls and getting turned over and, coming to grips with all the shenanigans that can happen on a Blood Bowl pitch. But these basic things can help you. And another thing to consider when you're just in general terms of being defensive and maintaining your drive, okay, is obviously other kind of things such as tying up opponents' positionals. Maybe with your lineman that's unskilled, if you put him on a nasty looking blitzer, obviously that blitzer has either got to take a free punch on the lineman or he's got to dodge out and risk failing that dodge, risk rolling the armor, turnover, things like that. Now obviously it's not always as cut and dry. I'll give you another example of when it turned in my favour, actually, a situation that my opponent didn't spot or didn't entirely take as a threat. And it was against Rubik again last weekend. I I went over in my earlier vlog about the re-rolls and the risk this match against his Khemri, and there was one particular point where things weren't going so well. I think he'd already turned me over. It may even been when he was 1-0 up already, and he'd gotten possession of the ball again. He had a screen of players in front of the ball carrier, and behind his ball carrier, so his touchdown side, if you will, rather his touchline side, I had a blitzer, and that blitzer he'd placed 2 players either side of. So it was a difficult dodge out. I had to make the 4-up dodge into one of his defending players' tackle zones, and then another 4-up dodge into the tackle zone of the ball carrier. But I made it, and I got the 1-dice blitz. I think I rolled the power and got the ball loose. Obviously, it didn't work out, but it was still an area that... It just goes to show that, you know, things are never really 100% safe in Blood Bowl, unless, of course, mathematically, you eliminate the movement of your opponent. So if you've got, for instance, that player, maybe it's a movement 6 blitzer or something like that, when you knock him down, you eliminate 3 from the movement of his next phase, obviously. So if you're caging up, obviously you've made that situation where it's a really difficult dodge for him to get inside. There is that. But I've you know, decided to put the hammer down before now and rolled a 6 to get into someone's cage and ruin their day. It can happen. So also think about players that can mathematically get there, that have the movement. If you're playing against Agility 4, then it's only a 5-up for them to get into a cage. You know, it's a 1 in 3, and if they've got a re-roll, then they can make it in there. A little bit more of an advanced thing that involves more skills. But if you have, for instance, we as I said, we're talking about tournament rule sets. So if you've got this tournament rule set, and you've got a couple of blitzers that you can give the guard skill to. Guard is such a strong skill in Blood Bowl. It's so good. If you're a dwarf team, you don't leave home without guard. And basically what guard does, again, I know you've got the rule book probably, but I'll just go over it anyway. The guard skill basically allows the player to assist with a block, even if he's in an opponent's tackle zone. So he doesn't get cancelled out. He can still assist. And if you've got your cage, your full cage around the ball carrier, a good thing to do is to place 2 guard players on opposite corners of that cage, because what that actually means is basically there's no square in that cage an opponent can now dodge into where you don't get an assist. Just have a go of setting it up, and you'll see what I mean. You know, if you nominate 2 players to have the guard skill, just sort of arrange it on your board now, and imagine a player dodging in, and you'll see that there's no empty square that a player can dodge into where you don't get that guard assist now. So that's a really neat thing to do as well. Just makes it that extra bit difficult. Now we're also going to go into when you're defending your opponent's drive, and ways you can set up, things you can do. Again, basic things. Again, doesn't always work out, but just these little tools that you can have in mind to help you out in certain situations. But there you go. That's the. I wanted to give that example because it is such a basic thing, a full cage, and yeah, you can do the full Vengabus and, you know, have literally 8 players around your ball carrier. But, you know, that's a lot of players to commit to, you know, defending that ball. You've got other things to achieve on a pitch. You've got players to tie up. You need alternative, alternative threats. Maybe you've got to keep catches out there and things like that in case you need to break out of that cage and pass the ball somewhere. So just bear that in mind. That's another little tip I just wanted to hand out, because like I said, I've played guys that have come to tournaments, you know, game 1 of a tournament, and I'm playing a guy who not only is it his first Blood Bowl tournament, but it's sometimes only his 4th or 5th game at all. You know, he's picked up the game, he's played with his mates, and he's come across, or through someone else, through a mate, they've said, come and give Tournament Blood Bowl a go, and it's great. It is great. It's such a great occasion to do. But obviously, you just want these little sort of pointers that you might not have had properly in your preparation that could help you out. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave that one there. Just a basic tip, really, and something that for a lot of us is second nature, but not for all of us. Some of us, we don't know this stuff yet. So anyway, guys, we'll leave it there. Have a great day. Get rolling some dice. Get playing some Blood Bowl. And we will see you later.